Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Josephine if you are new here. So for today's video I thought I would film my lockdown favourites. I know we're about to leave lockdown here in the UK, but I thought it'd be nice to look back on all the things that over the past year have kept me going, kept me sane. And also in this last week I'm probably going to revisit some of them and rewatch or reread or re-listen to some of these things, because this year's really been hard, and I don't know, I thought it'd be nice to look back on the things that made it bearable. So yeah, for today's video I'm just going to talk about the books, podcasts, films and TV shows that I've loved over the last year. Okay, so the first book is this one. This is Queenie, if you can see that. I love this book so much. It's by far my favourite book that I've ever read. I actually got it Christmas before last, so I got it before the first lockdown, but I've read it another 3 times. I think I've read it each lockdown, the first one, the second one, and I read it again a couple of weeks ago. So this book, I don't want to give too much away about the book, but it's basically about a woman who's kind of going through a break with her boyfriend and all the things in her life, and I don't know, it's just really good. And it's one of the first books that I've read that was written by a black person, and I feel that really comes through in the book, because the way that she wrote about black families and friendships and all of that, it was something that really resonated with me, and I don't really get that. The other books I'm going to talk about actually are also written by black people as well, black authors, and I feel they have that same thing, I don't know, they just write about the black experience so well, and that's not something that I've had before in books I've read in the past. So this is Queenie. I've read it 4 times. I've read it in each lockdown and I absolutely love it. Okay, and the next book I'm going to talk about is Open Water. This is a very new book. This came out, I think this came out in the start of March or maybe late February, but this is about, again, it's about a couple. I like romance books, okay? The theme here is very much black people in love, not gonna lie. But this book, the way that it's written, it's incredible. It's like poetry, it's like art. It's so different from anything I've read, and it's so short as well. If you can see, it's a very tiny book, and it's just beautifully written. It's about these young people it's about how they fall in love, and they're from very similar upbringings. They both were privately educated, but they were black, so there was that whole thing of not really fitting in their schools. They're both creatives, he's a photographer, she's a dancer. I just love it. I love it, and it's so different from anything else that I've read. The style in which he writes is just so different, and I've really not experienced that before, and it's really refreshing to read something that was written like this. So that is Open Water. This has got me through this last lockdown gone. I still have a teeny bit left to read, so I haven't finished it yet, but genuinely the first page I read I was like, yeah, I love this. So this is one that if you haven't got, you have to read. It's the first novel by this author, and I think he used to write short stories. From what I've seen of him, he's done a few short stories before, but this is his debut novel, and for a debut novel, it's incredible, honestly. So yeah, that is Open Water. Okay, and the third book I'm going to talk about, yes, the theme is romance, yes, the theme is black people in love, I'm sorry, but this one, the name it's in the title, Love in Colour. I'm obsessed with this book. I absolutely love it. And the reason I love it is because each chapter is a different story. So it's not one big book. It's actually, how many were in here? I think there was 10 or maybe 12 different stories in here. Yeah, it looks about 10. Yeah, there was 10 different stories. So each chapter is a very short love story about different types of relationships, different types of situations, and it's just beautifully written. I love it. And it was amazing because I could read a chapter a night. So I read this in the second lockdown, actually no, it was this lockdown, but this one's been really long. I read this in January because it was one of my stocking fillers for my mum. So this was actually our third lockdown, but the third lockdown and the second lockdown, they were like a month apart, and we had that weird tiered system in between, so that really felt like one big lockdown. But this is a lockdown 3 baby, and I love it. And it just says mythical tales from around the world retold, and that's perfect. Like, that sums it up. It is beautiful. And if you're someone who is trying to get into reading, but you're not great at sitting and like reading one big story, like following it, this could be a really good option for you, because you can just pick a chapter and you'll feel like you've read a book, like it's a whole story in like 20 pages. Okay, now podcasts. The first podcast I'm going to talk about, I love. I'm just going to say it now, I love it with my whole damn heart. It is the best thing that I've found. I actually started listening to it before any of the lockdowns, so I just want to say that right off the bat. But in lockdown especially, the Receipts Podcast has been 10 out of 10. Phenomenal, incredible. I love those women so much, like Tolly, Audrey, Milena. Just, I don't have the vocabulary to describe how much I love that podcast. It comes out every Wednesday, and they talk about loads of different topics. But what I've enjoyed the most is the Your Receipt. So every other Wednesday, they have a podcast where people write in dilemmas. And the dilemmas that people have are crazy. Like, some people are really, really going through it. And like, they're also funny, and they're smart, and they're interesting. And they have a book coming out, which I am so excited to buy that. But yeah, Your Receipts is the best bit of the Receipts Podcast. It comes out every Wednesday, and they have like something like 117 episodes or something like that. I literally listened to this week's episode this morning before like filming, but I love it. So it's just great because Audrey and Tolly are black women, and then Milena is Colombian, so it's really great as well to hear them talk about race. Sometimes they don't talk about it a lot, but it does come into the podcast, and there is the undertones of race in there, but they mainly talk about like social issues and like pop culture mainly. Also, I follow them all on Twitter, and like, I won't watch a show until one of them has tweeted about it, because I really I trust their opinion like that. So the Receipts Podcast, if I was ever going to recommend one podcast to anyone, it would be that one. So the next podcast I'm going to talk about is Dada Pod, which I love that as well. I listen to that every Friday morning, and like, I go down the road and I walk and I get coffee, and it's just become a really nice routine for me to like listen to them speak. And it's Moya and Lauren. Moya has a YouTube channel actually, which has also got me through lockdown. I'm not going to talk about YouTubers in this video, but since it's her podcast, I thought I'd mention that. But yeah, Dada Pod is a great podcast. It's quite new, so I think they started maybe in the summer, maybe like August time. So that is the second and third lockdown I've listened to them. They only have about 15 episodes at the minute, but I really love it in their like half-hour little podcasts. They've talked about college life, so they go to Trinity Dublin, so they've talked about that a little bit. They've talked about sustainability a little bit. They did a whole series of like love over February for Valentine's Day, so they talked about like self-love, relationship love, toxic love, and that was a really interesting series that I absolutely adored listening to. So yeah, that is Dada Pod. Okay, so the next podcast I'm going to talk about is the Ologies Pod. That is quite a new one that I've listened to. It's not new, it's like not a new podcast, but it's new to me. I started listening to it in last year, maybe. Everything in the past year is really merged, so like, this is where you're going to start to see me not be able to say how long I've listened to stuff. But yeah, the Ologies Podcast is this really cool podcast where each episode has a specialist, so an ologist. So they'll come on and they'll talk about one specific topic in detail, not loads of detail, but like kind of like an intro to. I really love it because they're mainly science ones. So there was one on sharks, which, if you know me, I'm obsessed with sharks. Like, I love them so much. They are my favourite group of animals by far. They did one on like corals and jellyfish as well. I'm not gonna lie, I'm quite partial to jellyfish and stuff. They've done quite a lot of marine ones, and like, I do marine biology, so I enjoyed those. They did one on squids as well, cephalopods. They do other ones, it's not just like a science one. Like, they did one on gynecology, they did one on like sex, there was one on cosmology, so like space and stuff. There was one with Bill Nye on there, which was really cool as well. So Ologies is a great podcast if you want to know a little bit about a lot of things, because you can just listen to them and kind of get a taster for loads of different subjects. And I've really enjoyed listening to it, and it's really, really cool, and it's hosted by Ali Ward, and she's just so funny and she has such a good vibe, and I've really, really enjoyed listening to that podcast. Okay, and then these next two podcasts I'm going to talk about them kind of together, because although they're not the same, they're kind of in the same bracket, and I listen to them for the same reasons. So the first one is Therapy for Black Girls, and then the second one is Black Girls Working. So from the titles, I guess you can kind of tell what they're about. They're kind of just life as black women, and like how they navigate that in the working space and mental health, and I've really enjoyed listening to both of them. They have different setups, so Black Women Working starts with like a little town hall thing where the topic of the episode, they ask like a group of black women to talk about it a little bit, and then you hear an excerpt of that, and then the four hosts, I've only just started listening to that, so I can't remember their names at the minute, but the four hosts did that, like talk about the topic and what the women in the town hall said. And then Therapy for Black Girls, that is the host, again, quite new to listening to that, so don't know her name. Maybe I should just check. I might just go check quickly. Yeah, she talks about like different topics. She's a licensed psychologist and she has guests on a lot. The first episode I listened to was actually her and another psychologist like analysing the relationship between Malcolm and Marie. You know, the film that came out on Netflix over Valentine's Day that had Zendaya and something Washington, forgotten his first name, but they just dissected their relationship and like what they would say to them if they came in for therapy. And they also did a few dissections of like Molly and Issa's relationship from Insecure. So I started with those, and then I like listened to the serious ones, you know, like about your queer identity, relationships with your mother, abusive relationships, all that stuff, which can be really hard to listen to. But I think, like, I haven't been in therapy, but I think it's really good to like hear a therapist talk about how life can affect your mental, especially as a black woman. So that's been really good for me. It's obviously not an alternative to therapy. Like, if you need to go to therapy, you need a therapist, but it's definitely like a good way to check in with your mental health. And then with Black Women Working, is that what it's called? Yeah, Black Women Working. That's really good because I'm about to graduate. Like, I'm in my third year now and I've just started applying for graduate jobs. Although I'm going to do a master's, I still like the fact that I can hear from other black women's experiences in the workplace, because I've had jobs, but they've always been like food jobs. Like, I've always worked in restaurants, and it's very different, the dynamics of that, to like an office job. So it's just really good to have that insight. And I found it really interesting, and the hosts are so funny. Like, I'm dying every episode. I've like powered through it. I started listening genuinely like 2 weeks ago, and I'm already beginning season 3. I think there's a 4th season as well, but that is a really good podcast that I would recommend, obviously, especially for black women. So those were the podcasts that I've loved. So now I'm going to talk about TV shows, and I'm going to talk about them kind of quickly because a lot of these shows have so many episodes that I wouldn't be able to like go through the plot of them. So the first one is Schitt's Creek, which is on Netflix. Absolutely loved it, and it was so sweet and it was such an easy show to watch. It had, I think, 6 seasons with about 20 episodes per season. It's basically this family who were really, really rich, and then they lost their money and they had to move to Schitt's Creek because they bought it like ages ago and kind of forgot about it, so it's the only asset that they had, and it's just about them moving there, trying to get ready to like sell the town, and then yeah, obviously just that whole process and them living in the town for a bit while they're getting back on their feet. And then another one that's a similar like sort of show, well actually it's not that similar, but Superstore, that's also on Netflix. That's just about people who work in a superstore. Yeah, like it's one of those shows that there's loads of episodes and it's about people in their job, and it's just really funny because obviously loads of workplaces have like loads of different characters. It's the same sort of dynamic as like, I don't know, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where like they're all police officers. Superstore, they're all working in the shop, so it's really good. And then these ones are a bit more serious. So I May Destroy You, that was on BBC. I don't know that that was in a lockdown. It might have just been between the first and the second one, but that show is incredible. It was quite triggering at times because it, you know, the main theme is like sexual assault, but it was incredibly made and it was such an important show. It definitely got snubbed in the awards recently, but I thought it was fantastic. It was so well made, acting was incredible, storyline, although hard to watch, it was great, and it just highlights so many important topics about sex and sexual assault and consent and the difference between how women are treated and men are treated with sexual assault and all of that sort of stuff. And it's a show that I think everyone needs to watch, I really do. So yeah, that was I May Destroy You, which is on BBC iPlayer. And then the next one, I'm going to do these ones in a little lump, is Moesha and Girlfriends. Those two are on Netflix, and I don't know, shows with black women from the late 90s, like what more do you want? Girlfriends is like the black Sex and the City, but not gonna lie, it's better, because I've actually just watched Sex and the City, like I just finished it, and Girlfriends, yeah, it's kind of better than that. It's 4 women, well I guess they're not that similar except that there's 4 women. They're kind of similar. They went for the same type of show, but Girlfriends is better. Moesha is just about Moesha, a teenage girl, her life, her time in high school, and it was great because I haven't seen that many shows that feature a black girl as the star, like as a teenager, and it's not really about struggle or pain. Like there's no black trauma in Moesha, and I respect that. I needed that. The next few shows, oh, these are a bit depressing. Do I want to talk about these? Yeah. Normal People, that was on BBC iPlayer. It was on at a similar time to I May Destroy You, I think. I think it came just after. It was a really good show and it was really well made. It did make me sad. Like the whole thing, I felt this undertone of sadness. But I do still think it's a really good show. It's about these 2 people who grow up in Ireland and like their relationship, and then when they go to uni for a little bit, they go to Trinity, and it's about that. But it is really good. I don't know if I'm selling it, but it is a really good show. And I quickly wanted to talk about anime actually, because I didn't write them all down, but I started watching anime in lockdown. So I'm not like a proper anime person, so no one come for me. Me and my boyfriend started watching Avatar in the first lockdown, which I know is like not a proper anime, but after watching that I realised that I really like that genre of TV. So then we watched, what was the next one we watched? Attack on Titan. we watched Attack on Titan, and that was incredible. The Titans are super jarring and kind of gross, sort of grotesque, but that show's so good. Like, the music is sick, the like animation style is so beautiful. I don't really like the way the Titans run, like that makes me so uncomfortable, but the show as a whole, incredible. And then we watched Deathnote. I loved Deathnote so much, like, oh, it was so good. It's so good. The only thing with anime is like, watching the dubbed versions, it feels illegal, like it feels wrong. It feels like you shouldn't be doing it. So you like have to listen to the original audio, but then you have to really pay attention. And I'm not gonna lie, between a lot of the lockdowns, it's been really hard to like 100% pay attention to what you're watching. But the animes, they're worth it, like Attack on Titan, Deathnote. We also watched Fullmetal Alchemist, and then I started watching Demon Slayer as well. I haven't finished that yet, but I am really enjoying it. I can only really watch them when I'm like really ready to sit and watch TV, because like I said, I'm not going to use the dubs. I think that would be cheeky to do that. So yeah, those are all the TV shows that I've loved and watched over the past year. Right. And then finally, I am going to talk about films. I actually didn't watch that many films this lockdown. Yeah, I didn't watch that many films, but one film that I did watch that I thought was incredible was Mid-90s. So that's on Netflix, and it's about this boy who like gets into skateboarding, but it's about so much more, and the way that it's filmed is so different. It has this like grainy texture to it that's like really cool, and it's about like the friends he makes, and it's, I don't know, it's one of those films that you describe as gritty, I suppose, but it was really, really good, really well made. It was really sad. It was like hard to watch. It was hard to watch in the same way that This Is England, I think, is that what that's called? This Is England, or England 96, or whatever. It was a very similar vibe to that actually, but I much preferred it because it didn't have racism. Or did it? Maybe it did. No, I don't think it did. I think, but it's a very similar energy to This Is England, the film This Is England, not the TV show. So if you like This Is England, the film, but you want, you know, not the really intense racist situation, and if you're into skateboarding, that is one for you. Next film is The Isle of Dogs. So that is a Wes Anderson, is that his name? Yeah, it's a Wes Anderson film, I think. I'm gonna have to search that before I post this. But yeah, that was a film that was like really weird, like it was really, really good. It didn't come out in lockdown, it's not like a new film or anything like that, but it's basically set, and like all of the dogs got sent away because I think they were making people sick or something, and then it was about this one boy who like flew a little plane out to go get his dog back, and it was about like all of the dogs teamed up to try and help him find his dog, and it was really, really cute, but it was quite sad and it was hard to watch at times. The animation style was really different. It was kind of like Fantastic Mr. Fox, I think it's like that sort of animation style, but it was a really well made film. And then, since I'm talking about a Wes Anderson film, another film I want to talk about is Moonrise Kingdom, which is also a Wes Anderson film. And Moonrise Kingdom is one of my top 5 favourite films of all time. Like, I absolutely love that film. I'm obsessed with it. It's just incredible. Like, it's the cutest film. It's about this boy and girl who they meet and they start writing letters to each other and they like plan to run away. And he is in like the Boy Scouts or something. So he uses his like Boy Scout skills to like help them run away and start a new life together. And it's really, really cute. And I love it. And I think that it's the sort of film that will just make you feel good. Like, and then, oh, these are good too. These are both Studio Ghibli films. Was it Ghibli? Sorry if I've said that wrong. The first one is Howl's Moving Castle. Howl's Moving Castle, weird, super weird, like so strange. It's one of those films where it's so weird that I can't even really describe why I like it, but I think since I first watched it, I've watched it about 6 times, like genuinely. I watched it last summer by myself, like when my boyfriend was at work, and then he came back and I literally watched it the next day and I enjoyed it just as much. And since then, it has become my comfort film. Like, I don't know, that film, it radiates just positive vibes to me. Like, I love it. I shouldn't have watched it that many times, really, but I have, and I'm gonna watch it again and again and again and again. I might even watch it today. So yeah, Howl's Moving Castle, that one, don't listen to the dubbed version, you have to listen to the proper audio. And then another one is Princess Mononoke. Definitely think I pronounced that wrong. But that film, again, Studio Ghibli film, really well made, really beautiful. And I just found it really, really interesting. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit tipsy when I watched it, so I can't give like a full, you know, this is what it's about. But I remember I enjoyed it. I definitely remember the next day when I was like subtly hungover, I thought that was a good film. I enjoyed that. So yeah, Princess Mononoke. And then, oh, the final film. This is the final thing I'm going to talk about. And I watched this lockdown, so the 3rd lockdown, and that is The Little Prince. The Little Prince, which is on Netflix, and I loved it. Like, that has become one of my favourite films. I only watched it that like one time, but it's just so different and it's really sweet. It's basically this little girl who has like a really regimented life because her mum's really intense, and she starts speaking to her neighbour who's like this old man, and he tells her the stories of this little prince, and when he's telling her the stories it kind of goes into this different animation style. So it starts off with quite a conventional animation style, and then when she's being told the stories, it goes off into this like crepe paper type thing, and you see him on these little planets and he falls in love with a rose, and it is beautiful. Like, the whole film, the way it was made, the soundtrack, the voice acting, it was all incredible. So that is it, guys. All of my lockdown favourites, my favourite books, podcasts, TV shows and films. Please be sure to comment everything that's kept you going through the lockdowns in the comment section below. And yeah, I just want to say that I'm really grateful that what I've had to do over the past year is just stay inside and find new things to keep me entertained. It's been so hard for so many people. Like, all of our key workers have been working so hard with very little reward, which is really, really sad. And so many people have lost so many people, which is also really hard. And my heart goes out to those people, but I thought it'd be nice to at least look at the positives and reflect on the things that I've really enjoyed over the past year, because, I don't know, sometimes it's nice to see the good things, especially when there's been so many bad. But I'm ready for outside. I'm ready for freedom, I'm ready to chop life, and summer and freedom, I'm ready. I'm really ready for them. Hot girl summer, we're coming for you.